and welcome to a brand new episode of The Power of Youth Plus. I'm your host, Yang Xinmeng. Today I come to the University of International Business and Economics. You know, as a passionate environmentalist myself, I'm always keen in the best approach to protect the world and make it greener. Are you as interested as I am in how young generation today perceive environmental protection? My colleague Jackson went around campus and asked this question. Take a look.
Hey there, this is your friend Jackson. Do you know it takes 20 years for one plastic bag to decompose? And do you know your fashion choice actually causes carbon emissions? Hey, now I'm at the University of International Business and Economics. Let's go and figure it out. Hey, what do you think is the best way to protect the environment?
Electrical vehicles, recycle, to volunteer.
Improve awareness.
Making sustainable fashion choices.
I think a lot of government policies incentivize us to buy electrical vehicles. I think in this university we have a lot of electrical vehicles. I was also living in the city of Xiamen. Yeah, they have a lot of, their urban planning is very eco-friendly.
I think it's something that not as many people are talking about. And it has a really big impact on our environment, huge. In every country you look at, you can see the impact of fast fashion and these kind of fashion marketing on our environment.
You have to differentiate between people saying they're doing that and people actually doing something. Many people slowly realize that we have a huge problem with the climate change, and so they realize we have to do something about it if we want to have a sustainable earth in the future for the future generations.
Hey Abby, I got all of these answers and these may surprise you.
Wow, a lot of great answers. Thanks, Jackson. Now, before we dive into today's topic, let's take a look at the beautiful campus of UIBE. Welcome back and hello everyone. Why don't we start to say hi to our audience first?
Hello.
Hello. Hello everybody.
Welcome everyone for joining us, and as we saw in the video, Jackson went around the campus and got a lot of answers. He asked right here, what is the best way for Gen Z to protect the environment? And we have got the top 5 answers we've collected here. So, but first let me ask you, how would you answer this question?
Yeah, if I'm going to start, I think one of the most impactful ways we can protect the environment as students especially is through sustainable fashion and making smart choices about where and how many clothes we buy.
Well, that's really smart. I think we've got one answer, sustainable fashion, right here in one of the options, but let's reveal it later. How about you, Edit?
Awesome. I think for me, I like following the traditional approach where I use the 3R method. I love to reduce, recycle, and reuse as much as I can. I think as much as people try to follow that, I think we'll pretty much, that's the best way to be as sustainable as we can.
The 3R principles. Yeah. And how about you?
Yeah, for me it will be the awareness, because for me that is the most basic part. It has to start, you have to be aware of what is the reason of protecting your environment, and having that knowledge of why it should be done, then I think the other steps might follow more easily.
All right, you know what? All of your answers are in these top 5 answers, so I think that's quite common. And let's reveal it from the number 5. Okay, volunteer with environmental NGOs. Have you had any volunteering experiences?
A lot, yeah.
Can you tell us a little bit?
Growing up, I would volunteer in my community gardens. We have gardens in the community, whether it's just flowers or growing vegetables, and doing trash cleanups or cleanups around the neighborhood.
I've had a lot of volunteering experiences, especially in Suzhou and then in Beijing as well. But I think the one in Suzhou is more significant because, back in our campus in Suzhou, we went around collecting plastic bottles, all the plastic bottles that students used on campus for around 3 weeks. And yeah, we created a big plastic tree out of this during Christmas. And like Fano said as well, it was more about awareness. Like at the end of the day, when after 3 weeks was completed, people were astonished to see the number of plastic bottles they'd actually used. And then the goal was that we made a tree out of that. And we wanted to signal to people that if you can use waste to create something new, that's more about reusing and recycling as much as we can. But I think definitely volunteering with environmental NGOs is very important, because people students basically get aware about environmental problems, but they do it in a way that they can have fun, which is most important. Because if you just let them know about something, I think most of the time they get bored. So, yeah.
Thank you. And how about you, Fano?
Well, exactly in my country, I didn't really have like experience with NGOs doing projects in environment, but back then I was like the primary teacher at a primary school level, but within my classroom we had also like programs with the children to do like, it was focused on the environment, how to start in the class, around the school, and even around their own homes, to like to look at the things that are not really supposed to be there, like trash and all those things, how to keep those things aside, and how to make them aware of a clean environment.
All right, thank you so much, guys. So yeah, the environmental protection, volunteering experience is important, but more important is how to follow up. Yeah. That's really great point. Let's see number 4. Okay, sustainable fashion choices. I think Philip, you just mentioned this part. Yeah. Can you talk a little bit more into that?
Yeah, I just think that we often when we think of the environment, we think of global warming, we think about energy, we think about traveling and airplanes and all these big things. But at the end of the day, I know a lot of people who love shopping, and we all want to look fashionable, and we all want to look good, right? But we also have to realize what that impact that has on the environment.
Right.
And I think that also has a disproportionate impact on the environment that people usually don't pay attention to because they don't see it. Coming from the US, growing up, I would mainly shop at thrift stores, and that would kind of alleviate my conscience a little bit, right? I don't need to buy new clothes. I can buy used clothes, slightly used clothes, pre-loved clothes. And that can be some way I can make a small difference in my day to not buy from a fast fashion or from brand new clothes that I really don't need. It's been hard for me coming, when you think of thrift stores in Beijing or in China, I see vintage stores a lot, and it's thought of as a luxury.
Yeah.
And I wish we could see more of this trend where it's thought of more as just as impactful as recycling or as riding a bike instead of driving a car, right? I think it can have just as big of an impact, because the carbon emissions that come from this piece of clothing and the damage to the environment it can have is just as big.
Oh yeah.
I think on that part, because the title is sustainable fashion. I mean, how can you make fashion be valuable for a longer period in time or time? So the thing is, I think maybe for the older people like me and above, it's easier. But for the younger generation, it's always going to be a challenge, because you always, the peer pressure, you always want to be there. You want to be among the trends. You want to be what is current now. So in that matter, have to go back to the thing I just said before, is the awareness. So when that part is very strong and solid and has a solid fundament, then other factors can play a very important role into making fashion sustainable. And I think in this digital age where the mobile phone is the #1 best friend for a lot of young people, if we have those role models in social media who says you can make something old new again, just like nowadays you have on TikTok trends, dancing trends. But what if we have something like a fashion trends with a slogan, change old, make something old, something new. Just like he said, his approach is from a different side, and I did as well. So people have not everybody's the same. Everybody have a different thought in that.
There's always different solutions.
Exactly. So we have to find a kind of a balance in that matter, but in such a way that it goes in the direction of sustainable fashion. Because who knows, what will the fashion be after 5 years? If the environment changes a lot, it gets extreme cold, this won't help us. We need something more thicker.
Yeah.
So this is also an opportunity for youngsters and governments to look at technology. What can we do to recycle old clothes in a way that it can be useful still in the future.
Yeah. I think right here in China, Alipay has this program to recycle your clothes, where you recycle the clothes and then you can get a lot of points. And then you can use these points to do other things. That's a really smart way. So
Exactly.
my friend is actually doing that. I was asking her, where did you get all these points? And she said she just recycled a box of clothes that she no longer dressed anymore. And when I was in college, so my school has this Facebook group. It's creating a shared closet for all the girls there. So that's also very smart, because when you no longer want these dress or something like you just don't like anymore, you just give it out in a very, very low price, or just give it out for free. So girls love that.
Yeah, I've actually come across a lot of those recycling boxes in community buildings in China, like in Beijing also, Shanghai and Suzhou. Like if you go to these communities where people are living, there's just recycling boxes everywhere and you can just drop everything there.
Yeah, so since we're already talking about recycling, this is actually number three, reuse, reduce, recycle. Everybody knows that. I think Edith just mentioned this, right? 3R principles. I think, so when we talk about environmental protection, a lot of people will mention this, the 3R, reuse, reduce, recycle. So in our daily life, I'm thinking, how can we turn this environmental protection into a habit, not just a slogan?
Interesting.
On an everyday life, it's quite simple. I mean, you switch your plastic bottle with a steel bottle and you make sure you carry it every day. It's a little hard, but you just carry it every day. That's the first move. And if enough people, like, I haven't had a chance to make much impact on UIBE campus, but on my campus in Suzhou, we literally made a rule for the business school that everyone carries a steel bottle. And that was just a strict rule, and people got fined if they came in with a plastic bottle. And so everyone on campus had a steel bottle. And so rules, and then of course small changes, small behavioral changes. And then of course you have, I think every coffee company now, like Starbucks, Manor Coffee, Luckin, if you went and took a coffee bottle there, they'll charge you a little lesser for the coffee that they sell you. So it's up to you. It's a little hard because you have to keep carrying it, but then that's the first thing you can do to reduce.
Let's take a look at number 2. Okay, green travel, EVs and shared bike. I guess you are very familiar with that, right?
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about your experiences with EVs or shared bikes?
Well, first of all, coming from a country where electric vehicle is something that's still a futuristic idea, because I come from Suriname, it's tropical. Everybody has his own a scooter or car that runs on petrol or in those kind of energy sources. But I remember when I came here in 2022, I landed in Hangzhou, and I couldn't imagine that every taxi car was electric.
Right.
I was like, how is this possible? But I only see like gasoline service stations. But then I experienced that one of the car had to go down in one of the big buildings and had to plug the car in. And I was like, oh, this is how it's going on, you know? And I think the government is also earning from this because of the uses of electricity. So, and when I came here on campus, it was during COVID. There was nobody. There was not even one scooter, nothing. But when it started opening up, I saw like the electric bikes start to come in a great flow. I was like, how is this possible? And in my side of the world, this is something that's just been going on. The introduction of e-bikes is something that's been 2 years or 3 years ago, but here it's already a normal daily life thing. So when it comes to green travel, if you want to make sure that everything stays green, just stay home. But if you need to go somewhere, be aware like, okay, I need to go there, make your road very short. Don't be aware of how you choose your form of transportation. If it's not too far, like from here where I sit, to go to the supermarket over there, I don't need my e-bike. I just can walk.
Yeah.
You know, it's also healthy.
Right.
So in this case, green travel, maybe we should also link that with health. Instead of using e-bike from subway station 1 to subway station 2, just take a walk, take a fresh air.
The greenest way.
The greenest way.
That's true, that's true.
What about you guys?
With regard to EVs, I like EVs, but I like it from a different perspective in the sense that if we invested more in electric public transport, that would be better than EVs as personal vehicles and e-bikes. Of course, there are some forms of transportation that you simply cannot discard. You cannot stop airplanes, you cannot stop trains. We need to get from point A to point B, and we're not doing it on a boat like Greta Thunberg. So yeah, we need EVs and better public transport. But then when it comes to EVs with like cars, I would say that it does lower carbon emissions in the city, but then those carbon emissions could show up somewhere else. I mean, for the more developed countries, like the best example that I've been to, I've lived in the Netherlands for a while, and if you've been to the Netherlands, you'll see that that's such a big cycling country. And I think, like, I come from India, where perception is a very important thing. So someone who is working at a higher level, like let's say he's a CEO or someone, he will never get a bicycle. He will always have a Mercedes or a BMW. And then the lower you go, the lowest you go is going to be on a bicycle.
And finally, you mentioned there are not any EVs in Suriname right now. So
well, actually, it's a trend that's just been recent because BYD opened its first shop.
oh,
Yeah, so it's going there. But if I just imagine, like in 2022 that I was here, there wasn't like even one EV car maybe in my country, like being promoted in that big scale. But nowadays, electric bikes and like BYD is coming in. It's getting there, but it's not what it's already been here in China, you know? It's starting to get there, yes.
how about in your countries? Any Chinese brand EVs?
Maybe. I haven't actually lived in the U.S. for like that much in the past few years, so I'm not exactly sure. There are obviously Tesla is really big in the United States, and obviously Tesla has a different image here, perception here in China. In the U.S., you know, people love Tesla, it seems like. But definitely, it's not like EVs are as strong as here in China. People still like classic old petrol cars.
I think, yeah, it's kind of similar in India too. Like I was, because of the pandemic, I was in India from 2020 to 2023. So it gave me a good chance to observe a lot. Big cities, small cities. Smaller cities, there is absolutely no trace of electric vehicles. But bigger cities, it's growing. But then again, we don't have that infrastructure for it yet. And we have enough Indian car companies that are big enough to start with EVs. But then it's about that perception. So right now in India, it's like if you have an EV, it means you are from a really rich family because you own a house, so you have your own charging infrastructure. But community buildings or communities where a lot of people live, there's no charging infrastructure and you cannot afford an EV. So now, right now, EV in India is like, oh, there's the rich people have the EVs, whereas in China, it's a common thing, right? Yeah, so I think step by step, but a lot of people in India, like in the US, they really love their ICE cars as well. They really want to hear that noise and they,
Muscle cars.
yeah, muscle cars. And then they also argue about the cost. It's, I mean, you spend like, what, 2 minutes at a petrol pump to fill up the tank, whereas you're going to probably wait for an hour. Or probably more than an hour depending on the technology that's accessible to that country for charging your car. So right now it's just not an economically viable option in most countries, I would say.
But still, public infrastructure is the basic.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. If you don't have that charging infrastructure, there's no point because you can't get that distance on the car.
All right, thank you. And let's see the top one answer.
Oh.
Improve awareness. I think
course.
that's Fano just mentioned.
Yes.
Why do you think this is the most important thing?
Well, in my own personal life, when you want to do something, because you do something because you wanted to do that thing.
Yeah.
And you do it because you are aware of what's the benefits of it or what's the disadvantages of something. So coming from that side of the world, it's very important to be aware. Because when people are aware, they will act more easily on the issue because they know why they're doing it.
Yeah.
And knowing why they're doing it means that they have a mutual understanding of where they want to go with that. They want to reach a certain goal, like lower the how would you say it? The effects on the environment, on the weather, on the sea levels, on even the flora and fauna. So I think awareness is for me like the number one case.
We've mentioned a lot of why this is very important and how to raise public awareness. You know, the 2024 APEC summit is being held right now in Peru, and it is actively promoting sustainable finance, also a way to raise public awareness. So how do you think about that concept? Is there a contradiction between sustainable development and economic development?
I think now more than ever, sustainable development and economic development are hand in hand. Maybe if you asked the question 10 or 15 years ago, you would have gotten a more mixed response. But with the impact you're seeing from climate change on the environment and on cities and on countries, on their economic abilities, you have to see sustainable development and sustainable finance in order to see continued economic development. Because we're seeing the impacts of the climate crisis on almost every country in the world. And it's costing almost every country in the world money, and it's costing them their economic development. And you have to see that investment in development that will counter those effects of climate change. And also the sustainable finance has to be proactive in working to address these issues before there are costs that these cities and these countries have to bear as a burden.
For me, it's the answer I don't want, but it's the answer that's needed, because sustainable development and economy, they go hand in hand. Yes, there is no other way, because of course the real answer would be to de-link them, because that's probably the best way to solve the environmental problems that we face. But then if you de-link them, people are not motivated to work anyway. So if sustainable development and sustainable environment does not link with their own economy and their own life, their personal economy, and then the country's economy or the city's economy getting better, there's no reason for them to take part in it. So yes, it's not the answer I would like, but I know that it is the answer that we all need. So on that note, yes, I agree with everything that Philip said as well. And then right now we don't have any other choice. We have to make sure that they go hand in hand, and we just have to follow that.
All right, so speaking of the APEC, now facing these climate crisis or this global social concerns, how do you think we as young generation can help to solve this problem, or to push any changes in the global landscape, to push for social changes?
Yeah, as Generation Z, we are the future generation that will have the jobs that will impact this. We will also be leading the families. We talked about how much family values influence the way we learn and the way we perceive the environment and our community. And as the next parents of the world, we have to put that into our families. Whether it's your niece or your daughter, it doesn't matter. It's your family, and you have to help them learn and engage them in these topics. And also, we have to understand that every place around the world is costing billions and billions of, if not trillions of dollars now, the point that we're at in the climate crisis. And whether you're wanting to start a business or you want to be a teacher, you have to realize the impact it's going to have on you. If you want to make money in this economy, you have to care about this. If you just want to make a difference in your community, you have to care about climate change still.
In the context of APEC, I would say dialogue is really important, because each of these 21 members, they come from different circumstances, different problems of their own. There are like island regions who are probably going to get affected first, and then there are other land masses that will get affected later. So why I say dialogue is because it's very important that I put myself in their shoes, they put themselves in my shoes, and understand our problems, and then come to a shared solution.
And another thing is about the APEC, in the context of APEC. If I saw it on the website, also powerful companies as like TikTok. Because like I said, the platform, maybe TikTok can create an environment for youngsters to do something about environment, like a special channel like environmental awareness, And another thing is, while this conference is going on in APEC, I hope the delegates will enjoy the beauty of the nature there, because Peru is, together with Venezuela, Colombia, Suriname, Guyana, and Brazil, part of the Amazon. It's the only place on earth where we still have tropical forests in its most purest form. So imagine if that is gone, what will happen to the world? But yet, till the day of today, the developed countries urges these countries like Peru and the countries within the Amazon area not to demolish the forest, but what do we give them in return?
Right.
To keep the forest. Because till nowadays, that forest is cleaning the air of the whole planet. So we need to do something. So if we are aware and we really want to go to that environment, we also need to how to say, empower those who still have those few resources that are still helping us or helping our planet to breathe, and also support other countries like Costa Rica, who was almost deforested But now,
Oh, yeah.
by implementing certain projects, programs, they now created they recreated their forest again. So these are the success stories we need to like promote on big conferences like the APEC, and also making that transition. I want to say transition, but there's something I learned from my professor from one of the universities in USA. He said like we should shift from a red ocean into a blue ocean strategy, making us unique in our way to approach certain issues. In these issues of environmental issues, it should not stay only on what you guys already mentioned, like it's just a slogan or something that we do on a higher level, and we like publish it like in this conference we have come to this point and that point, but we need to do something about it. And I think because APEC consists of governments, that also means that governments rule by policies, and I think by implementing environmental factors into policies, and that these members from APEC, after maybe next year they say, hey, we implemented such a policy, this is the result, you guys can do this, or we implemented such a policy, it needed some adjustment, this needs to be done.
All right, thank you so much, everyone. A lot of great points being mentioned. And now to our viewers, what do you think about environmental protection? Let us know your comment, your thoughts, your concerns in the comment, and we'll see you in the next episode.